this episode of the Dirty Airy F1 podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Kane. Thank you for joining me today. In this episode, I'll be reviewing the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix. But before I go through the field and rate each driver's performance individually, and all that may be going on in their respective teams, I'd like to share a few thoughts about some of the latest topics in the F1 world. Sadly, it's been announced that the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix have been cancelled due to the conflict in the Middle East. F1 have not commented about other races in the region as of yet. I can only assume their announcements regarding future dates are still being examined and rely solely on the progress made in the peace efforts. My thoughts go to everyone affected by this conflict, and I hope peace finds you and your loved ones as soon as possible. No makeup races or alternative arrangements have been announced as of yet. Second up for conversation, we revisit the debate regarding the new regulations and the type of racing it's producing. Two-time world champion Fernando Alonso was joined by four-time world champion Max Verstappen in saying that if you're enjoying this type of racing, you don't understand what Formula One is. I guess I don't know what Formula One is. Yet eight-time world champion Lewis Hamilton says the racing is perhaps the best he's ever experienced since he's been in the sport. When we reflect upon the history of the sport, there have been countless innovations that were panned immediately by the FIA or by the fans. The DAS system immediately comes to mind. This was introduced by Mercedes a few years ago, where the angle of the front tires changed depending on if the car was traveling in a straight line or if it was traveling in a corner. This obviously helped reduce drag and surface resistance, which, it certainly has road transferable technology that would have decreased tire wear, improved fuel economy on our road cars, etc., but it was still completely panned by the FIA and not allowed to race. A lot of the fans didn't like it either. Mainly Red Bull fans, I think, at the time. Mostly because I think they had not thought of it first. The new regulations have their upsides, though, so if you stay open-minded enough to have a listen, I think we're going somewhere right now. Reduced cornering speeds have absolutely threatened the integrity of some of the great corners on the calendar. However, the return of side-by-side racing is something I have yearned for since the beginning of my fandom, and so far, I'm willing to make the trade. As long as it's side-by-side racing like Lewis and George, or Lewis and Charles, even though that one was a little tight. Once super clipping is addressed, which is the deceleration we are seeing in the straightaways before the braking zones to charge the battery for faster corner exits, I think we'll have some of the best racing I've ever seen in my lifetime. Racers have had to manage fuel, tires, and energy before. Why do so many people have a problem with it now? Is it because the battery now accounts for 50% of the energy? In my humble opinion, I think there's more strategy and discipline than ever before, and there's something I like about that. I'm interested in what you think. Are you enjoying the new regs? Please leave a comment below. Keep it clean, too. Lastly, I want to discuss the absolute train wreck that is Aston Martin. Rumors are swirling that Aston Martin is actively looking for someone to replace Adrian Newey as team principal. It has come to light that Newey had not gone to Japan in the build-up of the season to oversee the progress of the Honda power unit. Considering this division of Honda was all but gutted after their championship efforts with Red Bull, I find this astonishing. Other rumors have Adrian stepping in and altering the course the Honda engineers were taking as soon as he came on board to make way for his radical design philosophy. Is this a case of Newey wearing too many hats? Well, relief's on the way. Lawrence Stroll wanted Jonathan Wheatley to join Aston Martin's initiative. He temporarily lost him when he named Adrian as team principal. Dollars to donuts, Mr. Stroll is about to rectify this error. I can certainly relate with Adrian regarding this podcast. I'm the creator, researcher, editor, narrator, producer, sound recorder, social media guy. That's why this show comes out a week later than normal. When Adrian was announced, despite his achievements and revered status, I was, like many of you, I was probably surprised. He's a designer. Some say the best. Why team principal? Was this their way to get him over there? Was this Lawrence's way to get him to Aston Martin? Whatever the reasoning is for the change, one thing I know is this: Lawrence Stroll's a winner. So is Adrian Newey. And Newey's probably not the first one to admit he needs help right now. Jonathan Wheatley can provide that help. Aston Martin continues to put the proper pieces in place to be successful. If you're a fan, stay strong. Good times are coming. All right. It's now time for me to go through my 2026 driver's ratings for the Chinese Grand Prix. Since this was a sprint weekend with many different results to look at, I will announce each team and discuss each of their driver's ratings. First up, for Cadillac, qualifying in 21st in the sprint, but did not finish, and qualifying 20th in the race and finishing 13th. Valtteri Bottas. Bottas had the pace on Perez for most of the weekend. Contact between the two was never on the drawing board for Cadillac. It was clearly Checo's fault. After a poor qualifying and a DNF in the sprint race, then being hit by his teammate, 13th is actually a great recovery drive for our favored Finn. More importantly, he finished the race, and right now, every lap completed must feel like a championship point for the new American team. I rate Valtteri's performance in China a 6 out of 10. As for Checo, he qualified 22nd in the sprint, finishing 19th, qualified 22nd in the race, finishing 15th, and was the last of the running cars. This was a weekend Perez will want to forget, and perhaps shows despite only missing a year, it's not that easy to settle back in, even for a veteran like Checo. He was given a safety car infringement penalty during the sprint race, then punted his teammate in the opening laps in the main race. He was the first to apologize for the incident and said it was the worst feeling in the world to hit your teammate. Every lap is crucial right now to the development of this team. Checo needs to refocus. No more rookie mistakes. At this point, Cadillac are not racing. They're doing race weekend testing. Checo needs to remember that with a veteran's long game strategy. Every lap completed now means one last lap until they are competitive. Qualifying last and finishing 15th, this has to rate as one of the poorest weekends in years for Checo. I rate Sergio's performance in China as a 2 out of 10. Next up, the team in green, Aramco Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso qualified 19th in the sprint, finishing 17th. Qualified 19th for the race and did not finish. Alonso was flying early up to P10 for the second time in as many races, once again showing his legendary racecraft. But as predicted, the Honda engine and its violent vibration issue led to his early retirement. Onboard footage showed Fernando driving down the straightaways with just his fingertips on the wheel, on the side of the wheel. By the end, he could not feel his feet or his hands and was forced to stop due to the engine vibrations. This car is so bad right now, it's very difficult to rate each of the Aston Martin drivers fairly. The results look awful on paper and on track, but heart and determination have always mattered to me. And who rates higher in this department than Fernando? I rate his Chinese Grand Prix a 7 out of 10. Next up, his teammate, Canadian Lance Stroll, qualified 20th in the sprint, finishing 18th, qualifying 21st for the race, and did not finish. Lance was outperformed by Fernando all weekend, but like I mentioned, how does one even judge a driver's performance in this team right now? Perhaps Lance was the guinea pig for this weekend, as they tried new solutions to address their multitude of issues. The Canadians' race ended early on lap 10 when the car shut down at turn 1. No pace, no progress, and no real data for Aston Martin to work with. Lance's grade in China is a 5 out of 10. Next up, Atlassian Williams. If not for the disaster that is Honda and Aston Martin, no question, Williams would be the disappointment of the season thus far. Thankfully, the smooth operator Carlos Sainz managed to qualify in 17th for the sprint, finishing 12th, qualifying 17th for the race, finishing 9th, to score 2 incredible points for the struggling team. Sainz did what Sainz does. He delivered. He fought his way into the points, managed the tires well on a heavily marbled track, and held off Colapinto in the late stages of the race. Smart, disciplined, and exactly the kind of drive Williams needed. I rate his performance in China a 7 out of 10. Unfortunately for Alex Albon, the same cannot be said. Qualifying in 18th for the sprint, finishing 16th, qualifying 18th for the race, and did not start. Albon never got the chance to show anything. Hydraulic failure meant he didn't even get to start the race. Between McLaren and Williams, this was a brutal weekend for the Mercedes-powered teams. Frustration is already apparent with Alex. He's been here for a few abandoned years already. This year was supposed to be the year. Sadly, the car is worse than expected, weighing the most of any car on the grid. And worse yet, the transition has already begun. Carlos has outperformed Alex for quite a while now. He's no longer the new kid on the team. Alex better hope his fortunes turn around sooner, rather than later. Next up we have Audi, where Nico Hulkenberg qualified 11th in the sprint, but did not finish. Qualified 11th for the race, and finished 11th. Hulkenberg was in the midfield fight all day. He ran P10 at half distance and just missed out on the points, finishing 9 seconds adrift of Colapinto. Clean race, decent pace, but Audi still needs a little more to break into the top 10 consistently. Next up, Suzuka, the kind of track that a veteran like Hulkenberg appreciates and understands better than most. If he has the machinery, I expect him to go better there. His rating for China is 6 out of 10. His teammate Gabriel Bortoleto qualified 14th for the sprint, finishing 13th. Qualified 16th for the race, and also did not start. Bortoleto never got going in China. After a fantastic point-scoring finish in Australia, where he finished 9th and scored Audi's first points, technical issues meant he didn't get to take start. A frustrating, empty weekend for the rookie. He showed little pace compared to Nico, and that is really the only evidence we have to go by regarding his performance this weekend. Gabby's rating for China is a 4 out of 10. Next up, Red Bull. Max Verstappen qualified 9th for the sprint, finished 9th. Qualified 8th for the race, and did not finish. This was one of Verstappen's worst weekend in years. He openly dislikes the new regulations. He also openly dislikes his car. His attitude has been negative and despondent since day one of testing. It also appears again that Red Bull is not that far better than its sister team Racing Bulls. The soft tire gamble failed instantly, and by lap 8 his tires were dead. He bogged down at the start, dropping from P8 all the way to P12 with battery issues, and in the end he fought Behrman hard before retiring on lap 46. A spirited effort that unfortunately counts for nothing towards his world championship ambitions. Max's rating for China is 6 out of 10. His teammate Isaac Hadjar qualified 10th in the sprint, finishing 15th, qualified 9th for the race, and also finished 8th. Hadjar's recovery was impressive, but the lap 1 spin nearly ended his race. He narrowly avoided collecting Behrman, regrouped, and salvaged to get to P8. Considering the failed soft tire strategy, this was solid damage limitation for him. His contact with Kimi in the sprint race took him out of the race, costing him points. Although not his fault, the heat of the moment had Isaac refusing Kimi's apology, especially after a disappointing retirement in Australia where a good points haul looked to be in the bag. Isaac needs a little luck to go his way right now, and this situation will quickly turn around. He has shown real pace, and despite the setbacks, he managed to score valuable points for 8th place on Sunday. My rating for Isaac in China is 6 out of 10. We now move to Red Bull's junior team, Racing Bulls. Liam Lawson qualified 13th in the sprint, finished 7th. Qualified 14th for the race, but finished 7th. Lawson is quietly becoming one of the most reliable midfield performers this season, making up 8 and 7 places in both races, qualifies Liam as one of the outstanding performers of the weekend. Clean overtakes, excellent tire management, and 0 mistakes. Had he not compromised during qualifying, who knows how well Liam would have done on race day. My rating for him in China is 8 out of 10. His teammate Arvid Lindblad qualified 15th in the sprint, did not finish. Qualified 15th for the race, finished 12th. Lindblad showed real maturity after a rough sprint, DNF. Qualifying 15th, kept his nose clean, and delivered a composed P12. Nothing spectacular this race, but exactly what you want from a rookie in only his second effort. He clocked valuable mileage while keeping his mistakes to a minimum. Other than a moment where he and his teammate Lawson were tripping over each other, trying to make their respective strategies work, he drove a quiet, unassuming race. I rate Arvid's performance in China as a 5 out of 10. And now, the surprise of the 2026 season thus far, Haas F1. Qualifying in 9th in the sprint, finishing 8th, and qualifying 10th in the race and finishing 5th, Oliver Behrman. Behrman was simply outstanding in China, thoroughly outclassing his veteran teammate, Esteban Ocon. After another fantastic start, he outraced Verstappen in the midfield and was actually closing in on Leclerc in the later stages of the race. This isn't normal behavior for a rookie. This was Haas's best result of the season and one of Behrman's best results of his F1 career. His near miss with a spinning Isaac Hadjar at the beginning of the race was the only break this young man needed to score an incredible 5th position at the end. Other than a win or a podium, I'm not sure that anyone could ask for any more from this Ferrari prodigy. My rating for Ollie in China is a 9 out of 10. And now, if you'll take this chance, in this video that was actually ready to be produced 4 days ago, but for some reason, when I only had 4 pictures remaining to upload, the whole entire thing crashed and went back to the home screen. So originally I thought I'd lost the podcast. But then when I went back into the projects tab, I found it again. And one thing I'm really realizing about this is this is now becoming a project for me about accepting the fact that I'm not perfect. And as a golf professional, I think that's probably one of the things that I've regretted the most. It's held me back the most. Is, I've hit 50 golf balls perfect in a row and then hit one bad and it doesn't work out and it changes the whole dynamic. Recording this podcast is I've really had to realize that back in the day when this was only audio and I could really dissect my audio, where I was taking out all these weird noises that we make when we talk into a expensive microphone. The need to be perfect in my life has been a dominating factor as to why I've achieved anything, but it's also held me back at the same time. So if you'll notice, the difference with the Ollie Behrman chatter is when I recorded this video the other day, for some reason Ollie Behrman's chapter was missing. So I've had to wait for nighttime again to come around and to get redressed up in this get. I don't even know if the background looks the same, but the one thing that isn't the same is Hippo. And Hippo is Tyler's favorite toy, so I threw in the background to make sure that, throughout this process, I've been applauded for the quality of my voice. People have spoken about how my voice sounds and how pleasing it is. I just want people to know that I'm a real person. I love Formula One. I've loved it my entire life. And this is all very new to me. And one of the things I think that's going to be one of the coolest aspects of this is I'm not perfect. I'm just like you. I love F1. And I do this because I love it. No other reason. I'm not paid. I'm not influenced. I just love it. And the fact if I get 20 views, 30 views, 100 views, 1,000 views, doesn't matter. I'm happy. I'm happy doing this. And I'm incredibly grateful that you're taking the time of your day to listen to me. Thanks. Qualifying in 12th for the sprint, finishing 10th, and qualifying 13th for the race, finishing 14th. Esteban Ocon. No driver since I started this podcast has raced with less assurances. He has always seemed to be under threat by teammate or team principal. First it was Russell, then Alonso, then Gasly. I referred to it at the time as the hot seat, and once again, despite this season being only 2 races old, I believe he has strapped himself back on it. Ocon's race was defined by one moment, the collision with Colapinto. He saw him exit the pits and followed the Alpine into turn 1 knowing Franco had cold tires. The shunt was unnecessary and sloppy racecraft on Ocon's side, and he knew it right away. He accepted the blame and apologized without hesitation. Does not change the fact he was given a 10-second penalty and his race was effectively over. Early season point scoring opportunities are vital for the lesser teams to take advantage of. With Behrman finishing 5th, Esteban's result is not only disappointing, it's career-threatening. I score Esteban's performance in China as a 3 out of 10. Next up, the other team in the conversation for surprise of the season thus far, Alpine. My main man, Pierre Gasly, qualified 7th in the sprint, finished 11th. Qualified 7th for the race and finished 6th. A fantastic weekend for Pierre, finishing 6th in the race and scoring huge points for this resurgent team. He delivered a clean, disciplined race and was right in the middle of that Alpine Haas scrap on lap 19. He managed the tires beautifully and scored maximum points for this team. My rating for the main man is 8 out of 10 in China. His teammate Franco Colapinto qualified 16th in the sprint, finishing 14th. Qualified 12th for the race, finished 10th. Colapinto showed race IQ well beyond his experience. He stayed out there early on that early safety car. He stayed out on the hard tires and cycled his way all the way through the order up to P2. The safety car ended up costing him in the end, but he still drove a bold, clever race despite the Turn 1 incident with Ocon. This was a gritty, intelligent effort from the youngster, and I rate his drive in China as a 7 out of 10. We move on now to the defending Formula One Constructors Champions, McLaren Mercedes, qualifying 3rd in the sprint, finishing 4th, and qualifying 6th for the race, and did not start. Defending world champion, Lando Norris. This was the first non-start of Lando's career. The official reason for not taking part in the race was deemed an electrical failure. Same with Oscar's car, yet each problem was unrelated. Despite the horrific result, Mercedes are said to be working very closely with McLaren to help them work out their gremlins with their power unit. Lando was downbeat and critical of both the new regulations and his team's inability thus far to wrap their head around the situation. When given the chance, Lando can fight around the front, as evidenced in the sprint race. I think it will take a few more races for McLaren to figure this out. I also believe they will be, in fact, do just that, and they'll be at the front sooner rather than later. Having not started, I can only rate Lando on his performance in the sprint race and qualifying. Therefore, I give him a rating in China of 7 out of 10. His teammate Oscar Piastri qualified 5th in the sprint, finished 6th. Qualified 5th for the race, but also did not start. Same heartbreak, different issue. When I predicted that 2026 was going to be a bit of a downer for Oscar, I never imagined he would sit out the first 2 races of the season. A double DNS for McLaren is a horrid result, the kind of weekend that derails championship campaigns. Once again, Oscar's driver rating is compromised. His performance in qualifying in the sprint race earns him a rating in China of 7 out of 10. Moving right along, we now examine the drivers for Scuderia Ferrari. Qualifying in 4th for the sprint, finishing 3rd. Qualifying 3rd for the big race, and also finishing 3rd, 7-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton. This is the Hamilton Ferrari fans have been waiting for since the day they announced his signing. He was sharp, calm, and ruthless when it mattered. Taking the fight to the Mercedes early on and outlasting his teammate, Lewis earned his first Ferrari podium. Managing a power loss issue from lap 35, he still managed to hold off Charles at the end. Mercedes may have won the race, but much of the chatter preceding the champagne was all about the battle between the 2 prancing horses. Lewis is happy and smiling. His spirits are high, and he is reinvigorated by the new cars. This is a very good omen for the Tifosi. Lewis's rating in China is a 9 out of 10. Charles qualified 6th in the sprint, finishing 2nd, and qualified 4th for the big race, and finished 4th. Admittedly, China's not a track that Charles drives well. However, his battle with Lewis kept us all on the edge of our seats. Leclerc fought like a lion that had not eaten in a long time. The action was intense between he and Lewis, and at some points I was asking myself, is this even helping the team? It was extremely entertaining for us the fans, and Charles himself admitted he enjoyed the battle with his legendary teammate. Sadly, like every battle, there are consequences and loss. The battle allowed George Russell back into the mix, and before long, he put the 2 stallions in his rearview mirrors. Later in the race, the battle scars remained, allowing Behrman to close up in the final stages. 4th just off the podium is still a fantastic result for Charles, and his rating for China is 8 out of 10. And finally, that brings us to the big winners in China, Mercedes-AMG F1 team. And first up, qualifying 2nd in the sprint, finishing 5th, and qualifying on pole position for the big race, and winning, Kimi Antonelli. Kimi started the weekend with a great qualifying performance in the sprint, before a poor getaway had him fighting his way back through the field. Along the way, he made an overzealous move on Isaac Hadjar, which ruined the Frenchman's race. This was Kimi's only blemish all weekend. Having taken pole position for Sunday's race, Kimi becomes the youngest to ever do so, breaking the record of Sebastian Vettel. Winning the race in epic fashion, there wasn't a dry eye on the paddock. Kimi was officially announced as Kimi Räikkönen as he got up on the podium. But anyways, Kimi has now officially put the worries that he's too young to be on the big team, like Mercedes. Sharing that podium with George and Lewis and Bono is certainly a surreal moment for all Mercedes fans. And Toto, despite being announced as Kimi Räikkönen, this victory will be long remembered for far more than just the announcing mishap. I give Kimi Räikkönen a rating in China of 10 out of 10. And finally, George Russell, who qualified first in the sprint and finished first, qualified second in the race and finished second. Russell looked like a finished product all weekend. Sprint pole, sprint win, and a clean P2 after a severe issue in qualifying compromised him. In fact, at one point, he was stopped on track, awaiting orders before he crawled back to the pits. In the main race, he closed in when the Ferraris fought each other, but he never quite had the tire life to continue chasing after Antonelli. Still, a complete, professional weekend. Mercedes walk away with a 1-2, and a very real problem. Both their drivers are performing at an elite level. My rating for George in China is 9 out of 10. That's the end of the show. If you made it this far, I thank you. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'm really enjoying doing the podcast again, and I'm grateful for your support. Next up, we go to Japan and Suzuka, one of the greatest tracks in the world. And I'm already praying for the integrity of 130R. Until next time, take care, friends. I'll talk to you soon. Moving along, we now examine drivers from Scuderia Ferrari, qualifying in fourth in the sprint, finishing third. Qualifying third in the race and finishing third. Anyways, it's a bit of an emotional one for me. Getting his first podium for Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton.